1. Punji sticks. Punji sticks were one of the simplest yet most feared traps employed by the Viet Cong. These sharpened bamboo stakes were often hardened by fire to make them stronger and more durable. They were typically placed at the bottom of hidden pits that were camouflaged with leaves, grass, or other natural debris. When a soldier stepped into the pit, the punji sticks would pierce their feet or legs, causing serious injuries. The danger of punji sticks extended far beyond the initial injury. The Viet Cong frequently coated the tips of the stakes with harmful substances like feces, rotting plant matter, or even poison. These coatings caused infections that could turn minor wounds into life-threatening conditions. Soldiers would require immediate medical attention, and their comrades would have to carry them out of the jungle, significantly slowing down the unit's progress. Punji stick pits were also designed to make escape difficult. The stakes were often angled to trap the victim further, causing more injuries as they tried to free themselves. Rescue attempts were equally hazardous, as some pits were booby-trapped with additional mechanisms to target those who came to help. 2. Grenade traps. Grenade traps demonstrated the Viet Cong's ingenuity in turning ordinary explosives into hidden dangers. These traps were often set up in areas where soldiers would least expect them, such as supply caches, doorways, or under piles of debris. The mechanics of a grenade trap were relatively straightforward. For example, a grenade might be placed under a pile of supplies with its pin attached to a string. When a soldier moved the supplies, the string would pull the pin, activating the grenade. In other cases, grenades were connected to tripwires stretched across paths or hidden under pressure plates that would detonate the explosive when stepped on. Grenade traps were particularly effective because they often targeted groups of soldiers. An explosion could wound or kill multiple individuals at once, creating chaos and forcing the unit to halt its operations to care for the injured. These traps were also psychologically damaging, as they turned routine actions like picking up supplies into life-threatening risks. 3. Cartridge traps, toe poppers. Cartridge traps, or toe poppers, were another example of how the Viet Cong utilized simple materials to devastating effect. These traps used small arms cartridges, such as bullets, placed inside bamboo or metal tubes. A sharp nail or spike served as a firing pin beneath the cartridge. When a soldier stepped on the trap, their weight would press the cartridge against the spike, causing it to detonate. While the explosion from a single cartridge was relatively small, it was powerful enough to severely injure a soldier's foot or leg. These injuries were debilitating and often required evacuation, further straining military resources. Toe poppers had a secondary purpose. They created opportunities for ambushes. The sound of the explosion would often draw other soldiers to the scene, making them vulnerable to attacks. Additionally, the constant threat of such traps eroded soldiers' confidence and morale, making them hesitant to move through unfamiliar terrain. 4. Bamboo whip. The bamboo whip trap was a simple yet effective device that relied on surprise and force. It consisted of a flexible bamboo pole fitted with sharp spikes and attached to a tripwire. When a soldier triggered the tripwire, the bamboo whip would swing rapidly in their direction, delivering a powerful blow. These traps were often set up along trails or in jungle clearings where soldiers were likely to pass. The spikes on the bamboo whip could penetrate deeply into the flesh, causing serious injuries to the torso, face, or other exposed areas. The sudden and violent nature of these traps made them particularly terrifying, as they struck without warning and could not be easily avoided. Bamboo whip traps were also strategically placed to slow down troops. Soldiers would need to stop and carefully inspect the area for additional threats, significantly delaying their progress. 5. Swinging mace. The swinging mace was another ingenious trap that targeted soldiers' upper bodies. This trap involved a heavy wooden plank or mace, often embedded with nails or spikes, suspended above a path or doorway. The mace was connected to a tripwire, which, when activated, caused it to swing down with great force. The design of the swinging mace ensured that it could inflict maximum damage, striking soldiers in the head, chest, or back. In many cases, the injuries caused by these traps were fatal. Swinging maces were particularly effective in confined spaces, such as tunnels or narrow jungle trails, where soldiers had little room to dodge the incoming blow. The presence of swinging mace traps forced soldiers to exercise extreme caution inspecting every doorway and overhead area before proceeding. This not only slowed their advance, but also heightened their stress and fear levels. 6. Snake pits. Nature itself became a weapon in the Viet Cong's arsenal through the use of snake pits. These traps involved placing venomous snakes in concealed pits or attaching them to tripwires. When triggered, the trap would release the snakes, which posed an immediate and lethal threat to the soldiers. The snakes in these traps were often native species like bamboo vipers, known for their aggressive behavior and potent venom. To make the traps even more dangerous, the Viet Cong would sometimes agitate or starve the snakes beforehand, ensuring they were more likely to strike. The fear of encountering a snake pit added another psychological strain to soldiers already wary of other traps. The thought of facing a venomous snake in the middle of a jungle, far from medical help, was enough to unsettle even the most experienced troops. 7. Bow traps. Bow traps were rudimentary but highly effective weapons that fired arrows using simple tripwire mechanisms. The bow was typically set up in a hidden position, and when a soldier triggered the tripwire, the arrow shot out toward them. These traps could be configured to target different body parts depending on the height and angle of the bow. The arrows were often tipped with poison or designed to splinter upon impact, making the injuries more severe and difficult to treat. In the dense jungles of Vietnam, where visibility was limited, bow traps were particularly effective. Their silent operation allowed them to injure soldiers without alerting nearby troops, making them ideal for ambush scenarios.